Hi, my name is Tiana, but you can call me T. I'm a business school student by day and a microblogger by night. Have you heard of Twitter? It's that social media platform, the one with the little blue bird. Twitter is an online news and social networking site where people communicate in short messages called tweets. Tweeting is posting short messages for anyone who follows you. And with Twitter, the hope is that your words are useful and interesting to someone in your audience and that you create engagement. For the last 10 days, I've been taking a data strategy class, and I've been tweeting all things data strategy. I also followed more than 50 thought leaders in the data space, and this is what I learned. Prior to this assignment, I used Twitter for personal purposes only. When I had done my first tweet, I was not following any health students or specific thought leaders in the space. At this time, I had roughly about 80 followers. As of today, I have 161 followers. To my surprise, many of the thought leaders that I had went and followed actually followed me back. I also found that as I continuously and consistently posted data content on Twitter, I started receiving more engagement, from followers to likes to also shares. My first tweet about data strategy did not receive any engagement really. No one had interacted with my tweet. However, by the end of the 10 days, my last tweet did really well. I even got 3 retweets, meaning 3 other people shared my article onto their timeline. I often find social media to be too exhausting because I believe that you need to be intentional with what and how you post in order to increase organic engagement. However, considering I did not spend a significant amount of time on creating my Twitter content and I saw organic engagement, I learned that consistency actually works. I now see Twitter as a new platform to potentially use for monetization. Aside from changing my perceptions of a social media platform, another notable change through my before and after assignment experience is my opinion on the data strategy space in general. I learned more about the data strategy space from having to tweet about it than I did actually reading articles on it. And this brings me to my first main takeaway. And it's going to sound very cliche, but generally put, there is value to understanding the process of what you're doing. I am a systems thinker and I had a very specific process for how I went about this assignment. My first task was to essentially find interesting articles. Because this assignment was done on Twitter, I had naturally looked to Twitter first. I first searched Twitter using hashtags to see what was happening in the data strategy space in the first place. I typed in data strategy into the search bar and all related tweets popped up. Data in and of itself is a vast topic, and while data strategy is a little more specific, there are so many components and aspects to data strategy. I found that my initial Twitter search had actually brought about too much noise. There was way too many tweets about data, and I would have to do too much filtering to actually find out which tweets were relevant to me. I actually wanted to try and focus on the data strategy part and avoid veering off into a tangential data-related conversation. So I turned to instead using a web browser. I literally typed in data strategy into Google and clicked the news tab. The point of the assignment was to tweet about current trends and basically to be relevant. The Google News resource did a great job of filtering news regarding data strategy, and specifically news that was new. But what happened with this search was actually the opposite of Twitter. Instead of the space being too saturated with too much noise, the space was not saturated enough. Papers and articles were not popping up about data strategy on the daily. In fact, when I went back to Google News every following day, I didn't really see new content. I found quickly that I was being picky with what I was going to tweet about. Because I needed to read the article, it had to be interesting to me. This led me to my most effective and efficient strategy, which was a targeted web browser search, where I typed in data strategy and ... whatever else I was interested in. So I typed in things like data strategy and makeup or data strategy and pizza. This brings me to my other key takeaway. Unlike the way schools are designed, the world is very intersectional, and while data may seem irrelevant for someone in, say, the humanities, one of my main takeaways from doing this assignment is that in the real world, everything is intersectional and data meets everyone and everything right in the middle. My tweets highlight this because they look at many interesting collaborations, companies, or concepts leveraging data. Personally, I've been educating myself on this space for some time, and what I found fascinating was coming to learn about people you would never imagine working together or using data. Data in and of itself provides opportunities and the potential for collaboration. In our Disruptive Futures class with Professor Olaf, we predicted futuristic scenarios. We envisioned tech companies buying up news channels, but never did we imagine collaborations like Chipotle and the makeup company e.l.f. This was something that was trending on Twitter during the week. I was able to create an engaging tweet by comparing something that happened in real time and an actual collaboration between Aston Martin and NetApp. The exciting part was that NetApp actually saw and liked my tweet. Overall, this experience was surprising. I didn't think there was much to gain from this assignment, but looking back at my tweets and my understanding of the space, I have come to learn that data strategy isn't a single subject that one can learn about in just 10 days. Data is now ingrained in everything we do, and understanding and learning about data strategy is an ongoing discussion that we all need to be having. While some of my tweets highlight the data is new and we are still understanding how to navigate this space and how to set up the foundations by discussing things like power structures and autonomy, we have also moved on to the point where we aren't even creating our own data strategies anymore. We have AIs to suggest data strategies to us. Data is something that influences how we live and interact with the world to how we think. It's scary, but it's also not. Data, at the end of the day, is information. The more you come to learn about it, the more you are enabling yourself to take control over your data and your decisions. While data has the power to influence your life dramatically, you can also influence data. How? By simply sharing a tweet. We live in a tap and scroll economy. People don't necessarily have the time to read articles and actually understand topics to a deep level. People actually now get their news in minutes. There are many ways to learn aside from reading. You can also learn from engaging with others. And depending on how you choose to learn, there is going to be variability to the depth of your knowledge. Reading one article can teach you a lot, but reading 10 tweets can also teach you a lot. If you take away anything from this presentation, take away that we currently live in a time and place in which we lack data and media literacy. And while we try to figure that out as a society, it's up to us to educate ourselves. There is so much to learn, and there are so many ways to go about learning it. We may not always have control over the content that is being served to us, but remember to be critical of the content you consume and be intentional with the content that you create.